excited to be here with you today, and this is my teammate.
Hi, I'm Rachel Ostrowski. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I have been working with even pre-graduate school with children with various needs, and have continued to work with children and families and adults with the neurodivergent population. And so I'm excited to be here.
All right, so let's get started. Make sure our slides are working. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so today for our project, design project, I would say, we're taking a little approach to project-based learning, right? So those of you who don't know about project-based learning, it is where participants are engaging in real-world, personally meaningful projects, right? So for us, creating a Me Cave is a meaningful project because it is inclusive of all students, right? And so today we're going to really look at critical thinking and collaboration and creativity and practice communication skills. Okay, so this is an engaging activity. So I know you know how to use the chat room, right? So we're going to use that today. So be ready. Be ready. All right. Okay. So first and foremost, take a minute to name your favorite teacher in the chat, right? Rachel will be watching the chat for us while you're putting your favorite teacher in there. And I've had so many great teachers. I've had teachers that I don't want to think about too, but I'm going to go with my high school teacher, Miss Ray. Miss Ray, if you're out there, you're welcome. No, just kidding. So take a minute to imagine that favorite teacher, right? Do you remember her? Right? Yeah. Okay. So do you remember her fancy anchor charts? How about her layered borders? How about that she turned in her graded assignments into gradebook on time? I'm guessing you don't remember that, right? But I'm guessing you do remember her enthusiasm, her kindness, her creativity, and how she had a great relationship with her students, right? Right? I know as a teacher, I always felt like I needed permission to jump outside that box, for my kids, right? So here's some evidence for you, right? Creating and maintaining effective environments for student learning, right? Here they are. If you need permission, here's your permission. Today, I want you to think about your students and your children and what they need to succeed in your classroom.
We have so many teachers. It's so fun to see everyone remembers, and it's interesting to see how far back people remember. We have people remembering their third grade teacher, their fifth grade teacher. And so that really just shows how much that those teachers impacted us. And it wasn't really what they did on their board, it was how they made you feel. So there's this quote that I found by Dr. Young that I think is just super impactful. It says, there are no special education students. All students are first and foremost general education students, and all students belong to all of us. So as we think about that quote, it helps us remember that we have all different kinds of students in our classroom. So right now, I would like you to think of a child that you know, that you've noticed just struggles. It could be one struggle, it could be multiple struggles, but they're just struggling. And when you have that child in mind, for confidentiality's sake, I'm going to have you, would you please just put an exclamation point in the chat box? We don't really want to share names right now, but we're going to encourage you to think of this student as we engage in this design project. I know I can definitely think of one little guy that I'm working with right now, and it definitely was impacted by the pandemic, and it just exacerbated some of his struggles. So here is a few things we're going to see in our classrooms, and you definitely have experienced. We have what's called auditory sensitivity. So these little guys might be bothered by loud noises, or if kids are laughing across the room, or even that pencil, there's a student writing next to them with pencil on their paper, and that noise bothers them. If that's bothering them, they can't engage and focus and participate in the classroom and might struggle building friendships. We have those children that when they are reactive to something that frustrates them or they feel overwhelmed, they might be physically aggressive. So those are the students that instead of turning to someone and saying, I need a break right now, they might just physically react to this kid next to them. Like, I don't need you to stop writing with your pencil, and physically respond. Then we have those students that shut down. So these are the students that might go inside and they're not responding, they don't engage, you can't really get much out of them. It's hard to know how to help them. And then we have the students that know how to get out of the situation. They literally leave the room and maybe not come back. Maybe they go farther from the classroom. One example is separation anxiety, that transition from caregiver to a classroom. Tearing that Band-Aid off is really hard. And once they're in, they're okay, but it's that part. Then we have the kids that transition is just hard, going from one activity to the other. And so I'd like to point out that the reason that all of these things we're seeing in all of these kids is because their brains are still learning and processing and forming that prefrontal lobe, which helps them access the part of problem solving, which our goal of creating this challenge is to help children access that part of their brain. And the reason we are seeing all of these different sensitivities happen is usually because the amygdala is firing fight or flight. The situation that's happening right now is not feeling good in my body, and my nervous system is telling me that we need to run, we need to flee, we need to shut down. So I'd like you to keep that in mind, and as we continue, keep that student that you had in your mind. All right, so we have two resources we're going to be using today. The first one is the Vintage Innovation. And this is a book about how to create a design project using key features such as empathy, divergent thinking, and curation. So we'll be using this as our philosophy as we move on. Then we have Addie's Me Cave. It is a book that Sherry and I wrote to help children explore these really big feelings that they're having using various coping tools and that especially designed space, which is what our challenge is going to be, that offers these visual, tactile, auditory cues to help them access that part of their brain to calm down their nervous system. So using these two resources, we are going to blend them together, and we're going to work together, all of us, to create this design project today. All right, so we'd like you to take a minute. We'd like to take a few more minutes to talk about what a calming space is. I know I brought this up while I was chatting in the last slide, and this is how we're going to lead into the project we're doing. So keep that child in your mind that you thought of, and you might be like, what are some questions I have about this design, how I would make a calming space, and what really are the rules around it? So what? Having a special space designed to support children and all people emotionally and physically helps them feel safe and comfortable. So if you think about yourself when you're feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, if you feel safe and comfortable, you're more likely to access that prefrontal lobe and help yourself start letting your guard down and process the feelings that you're having. The anger isn't the blaring feeling. Fear isn't the blaring feeling. You can kind of access that. Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I frustrated? Am I feeling left out? Am I feeling lonely? And then when you were able to access that, we are more likely to see these undesirable behaviors in the classroom, and we're less reactive. When would we use this calming space? The goal would be to use it prior to escalation and this unwanted behavior. So we're going to notice these warning signs kids are giving up, like they're clenching their jaw, maybe they're like banging their books too loud, or they're just turning their back on their friends, their heads are down. So those are when we might be like, hey, you might need to go visit the calming space. But it's okay that we would do it as a reactive to after a meltdown might occur, so that we can encourage some of these. It's a low stimulus environment that will encourage these coping strategies that we're going to be talking about. All right, what ages? All ages. So definitely we can imagine preschoolers that might need a space that's designated for them with like comfy bean bags that they can go crash into, all the way up into high school. So we might have these high schoolers that just need a spot where they can go and decompress. The world is a little bit wild right now and I need a spot. I'd like you to think about adults. Would adults need a calming space? Yes, we all use them. So some people might have their calming space in their bathroom, their bathtub. They might smell the oils that make them feel calm. I know for me, mine might be driving with a nice warm cup of coffee in my car for 10 minutes by myself. That might be my calming space. So again, I really want you to think about how everyone benefits from having a spot they can go that they can access these calming tools to tell their nervous system that everything is okay and we can problem solve. Is it good for when you're overstimulated? Yes. The goal is that a person can regain their composure before they go engage in this undesirable behavior that we don't want to see, like that physical aggression or that running out of the room. They have a spot they can go and when they're overstimulated because it's a low stimulus situation. And again, we're going to be curating this for specific children to help them find that low stimulus situation. Can it be used for fun? This is a great question. So the goal is to help students understand how the space is to be used and set up these guides and boundaries on how we would use the space. And then, yes, it can be used to go explore. It's fun to explore our feelings. It's fun to explore different coping strategies so that when we do feel this moment of extreme overwhelm, we're like, oh yeah, take a deep breath, count to 10. So yes, it can be used for fun, but again, it's been not just have at it, it's actually been, the teacher has guided students on how they would use this space. Okay, so I am going to highlight some of my favorite tools that we have created that would be helpful in this space. So in this toolkit that we put together to go along with the book that we wrote, it's a toolkit for teachers, and it actually helps. It's a curriculum for teachers for a week of how to introduce this space to your students. So I want to just point out a few things so that we have these in the back of our mind as we go into our challenge project. So the first one that is super helpful because, again, when our amygdala is fired, fight or flight, something scary is happening, we do not have the part of our brain that goes to words. So if you notice when you're overwhelmed, you might lose your words. You might not be able to explain what's happening. So a feelings wheel. A feelings wheel is really helpful in helping the child they can point to what they're feeling and they can, and also it's not just mad because that's usually the answer, I'm mad. So there's a lot of different feelings under mad. So this is where this is super helpful. Then another thing that's helpful is actually telling our nervous system that we're okay is taking deep breaths. So we have a chart that helps students know to take 5 deep breaths in and out. Again, this visual tactile cues helps them take a breath in and a breath out. And after 5 times, if we all did that right now, all of our nervous systems would be calmer. And that would tell us that it's okay. Now we can access that part of our brain that helps us think.
I'm doing it from the side, everyone.
She's doing it. I need to be doing it right now. All right, then we have a yoga. So we all know mindfulness and yoga is so helpful in helping us calm our bodies. This is a yoga flow chart, so the student can make their own flow. And so it's active engagement, and they get to start learning independence and helping themselves feel better. And then they get to do their own flow that they've created. And then we have, so again, I talked about this breathing. Some kids might need a different breathing chart. So here's another example of a different breathing chart that is more interactive. So I don't know if you've heard of square breathing before, but a way to tell our nervous system that everything's okay is to do what's called square breathing, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. And when you do this a few times, your body will calm down, your heart rate will lower, and you can start to think about a better problem solving strategy than pushing the kid who's writing with his pencil next to you. So like I said before, we have this part in our brain that can't talk because we're mad. It's helpful to have a little card that says, I need thinking time, so I need space. And then another way to let your teacher know that your teacher could come over, a friend can come join you in this spot. I'm ready to talk. So that might be useful because you won't be able to talk. And then I want to encourage people to think about gratefulness. So when we're feeling negative, there's 2 forks in the road. When we're mad, I can go down the really everything is bad, or I could start going down a more positive approach. So gratefulness jar. So this is where students could start labeling things that they're grateful for. And it gets them out of that negative mindset that we can kind of get stuck in. It's really easy to do. And then we're going to talk a little bit more, but then here is a fanny pack that can go with you. So it's full of different tools that help you with if it's breathing, a squishy to help you if you need sensory input. So then there are so many tools. So those are just a few that I wanted to point out, and we will talk more about this at the end. All right. All right, everyone. Are you ready?
Here's the challenge. Your class needs a calming area right away. You've got some kids in there, and you've got to incorporate a simple solution to address all of your students and their needs. And together we are going to create an innovative common area to address this challenge. So you're going to design a space and activities for any child who's going to go into this space. And for the sake of time, we're going to focus on one of our students in our classroom named Stephen.
My name is Steven. I'm in 2nd grade, and I have a hard time keeping everything organized. It's like I can't even think. It's like I don't even have a brain. It's like very hard for me. What direction do I have to do first, second, third, fourth, fifth? Do I supposed to do them in order? It feels very embarrassing, like everyone is very organized and like I'm the only person who's not organized. I'll put something here and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to find it. It feels like someone stole it. And then I'm like, oh, sorry. It feels very stressing.
All right. Rachel wrote in the chat, does anybody know a Stephen? I sure know a Stephen. She told me yesterday when we were watching this that, she knows a Stephen very well too. Okay.
Identify a little closely with this.
All right. So we need to keep Stephen in mind when we are creating this calming cave today. I know I love the music. Okay. But I want you to think about your role. Right? Lots of roles that we play. We all have different roles. We've got the administrator who is that leader and really organizes things for teachers and gets everyone on board. We have teacher leaders who, are also the organizers of ideas, and they make sure everyone understands and has that appropriate understanding of whatever we're doing, right? Resource specialists, people who gather the information, they get those supplies ready for us. And then counselors, right? They really focus on mindfulness, for us and for our students, right? Think about the type of role that you want to take on for this challenge. Who do you want to really have a mindset with during this challenge today? Type it quickly into the chat, right? If you change your mind, you can change your mind. Nobody's stuck to having this role, but maybe you really want to be that resource specialist today, or maybe you think, yeah, I'm going to be the counselor. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we go into constraints. And I want to be frank, everything we do has constraints. Everything we do has barriers, right? In true universal design for learning, we really have to anticipate those barriers up front. And we can do that by having flexible lessons and learning environments that are not trying to fix or change our students, right? So that first step is to really clarify, what are we doing? And what are we doing today? We're creating a calming cave. We're focusing on Stephen, but we want to make sure that all students can use it at the same time, right? So think about this. Here's our constraints today, our barriers. We've only got 15, 20 minutes, right? Normally we would give a little more time for this, but for the sake of time, that's what we have. We have a student, right? So we have to keep him in mind when we are planning this. He's got organizational challenges. So what types of things are we going to put into this space? We're educators. So cost, we don't have any money. Okay. So cost is minimal. So maybe here and there things, but space too, right? We have a small space. So how the heck are we going to put a calming space, with not a lot of money into a classroom? And we're doing this remotely, everyone, right? So this is a big challenge too, right? We're doing this over chat. We are engaging, in a way that, might be tricky, but we're going to face those barriers up front. We know those barriers are there, okay? And because of that, we're just going to keep proceeding on with this. And we're going to need your help to go into the challenge. Here we go. All right, here we are. Okay, as a team, we must design a prototype of a calming space for Stephen and all of our students, right? So we're going to be using the chat. Rachel's going to be reading things out loud to me. Tell me, what are some things we can put into our calming space? Here's our classroom right in front of us. We've got a desk, we've got a whiteboard, we've got a shelf, we've got a plant, kind of made some room for a space, right? So what are some things we can put on there? And Rachel's going to be throwing things from the chat, telling us from the chat what we're going to put in here. And we have 15 minutes on the clock. Rachel already started the timer, right?
Yes.
All right. All right. What do we think? I think we can also use the whiteboard to write notes to ourselves, like maybe what we want to put in our tools. You guys can think about stuff that we were talking about earlier. Here we go. So we're going to do this.
So what do we remember about Stephen and something that he struggled with, and how are we going to help him in that moment if he is feeling disorganized or having a hard time paying attention? Is there anything anybody can think of? We have a radio with headphones.
I like it. Okay.
Awesome.
So we got a radio. Let's move a radio in here. Maybe let's take the toys off the shelf. We don't need any toys. I'll put it over here, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay. We have someone said a bean bag.
Okay.
Maybe
So
the teddy bear.
okay, put a beanbag on the floor, add a teddy bear. We don't have to use the things that are in here.
Yes.
This is just stuff we have around the classroom that we were like, okay, well, we could use some of this stuff.
If you have any ideas that you'd like to add, I can find those and add those to our room.
Yep. We don't have to add things that are just here. Like we said, any of the stuff we talked about, anything you guys were thinking about for
We
him.
have a notebook and headphones.
Okay. Yep.
And then we also have a notebook with a list of things to do. Oh, so cueing, maybe a visual cue of how he can help himself when he goes there.
Okay. So you know what I'm going to do is we will make a little text box for that. So what are we doing, Rachel?
We are going to encourage him to take 5 deep breaths.
Okay, so the breathing chart.
The breathing chart.
Ooh.
A visual cue schedule. Visual schedule. So someone said a visual schedule would be helpful. So if there is an order to this.
Visual schedule. What else was there? Breathing chart, visual schedule. Anything else? Maybe we put the basket, to collect the materials, the stuff.
So someone suggested break down the tasks. So again, yes, he'll need help when he gets there and what to do.
So maybe a directions chart, like the expectations of when you're here, this is what you do. Okay.
Someone has a stress ball. So yeah, there's sensory tools that would be helpful. So we have the putty.
I'm putting stuff
See
here.
if I can find a stress ball for us.
Any of that? Oh, I forgot I already found putty here. Put it over here in the basket, guys.
I'm just popping in there.
I'm putting it in the basket.
Giving us a stress ball really fast. Sorry.
Oh, here he is.
A little bit more size appropriate for us. There we go. We could put him.
All right. Anything else?
So yeah, I see a lot of how to help him break down the tasks of what would help him the most.
All right.
Oh, we just got a phone call.
Oh,
The principal has called, and he said that we have Sarah. She's a new student that will be coming into our classroom, and she has sensory needs. So she is someone who is bothered by loud noises, and it tends to get overwhelmed, and tends to leave the room when she's overwhelmed. So we need to figure out how to make this space inclusive of her as well.
okay. So
Any other ideas people might We have maybe a color-coded system paper, color-matched folder for the subject, so he can file and find. Oh, this is great. So maybe a cue that in the calming corner that might help him remind him that he has a color-coded system to help him.
I like that. Color-coded systems are great.
It's a great strategy that will help him outside the classroom. All right, so how might we help Sarah here? What would help Sarah? She tends to get overwhelmed. Giggling in the classroom bothers her. Noise canceling headphones was suggested.
Yeah, we have to keep Sarah and we have to keep Stephen in mind now, because we always get new students, right? Stephen might leave tomorrow too. You never know.
Choice of a preferred task after he calms, something he can be successful at. Choices.
I like that there's choices.
We also have keeping it neutral colors. That is great. A great point to make about the if things are visually overstimulating to the child, it tends to heighten their nervous system a little bit. So yes, I think on here we do have quite a few colors in our room, but that might be something that we could make happen. Where I've seen a lot of in my research, a lot of classrooms becoming more of that neutral tone. So we have more baskets that are made of like a more wood-looking baskets. Shelves are more natural, and studies do show that when children are surrounded by calm tones, they tend to calm even adults too. Get rid of any clutter in the classroom because it can be overstimulating. Yes, that's a great point. So if we notice, this isn't just about this little corner that we're making right here. If we notice that the classroom is overstimulating, there's too much on the wall, that it might be something that we need to change our classroom setting too.
And then also in our space too, we can be mindful of that. If we have any activities, we could probably put them in a basket, the color-coded basket, like you guys were saying, so that they're labeled and ready to go, but a lot less clutter, especially in that one area, right?
And we're also keeping in mind all students in the classroom so that they, but again, we'd like to point out that the students would be guided on how to use this space so they would know where everything is located. So I appreciate the idea of keeping things in organized baskets so it's clutter-free, but everyone knows where everything is located. So maybe labeling would be helpful. Visual labels for those who might not be able to access reading when they're feeling overwhelmed, and images are easier for them.
Exactly. Just gonna put these in the basket, so it's not so cluttered here.
Someone pointed out that eye covering mask to make it darker for her. What a great idea. So maybe have an eye mask available for her.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find that.
Grab an eye mask. I like that. Oops, excuse me. My bad. Going to the wrong slide here. Right. So eye mask. Rachel's going to see if she can pull up an eye mask. That's great. I love that. Having these choices, and again, you're thinking about these students in mind, but we want to make sure, like somebody said, what are the expectations so that anybody who goes in there, if they really want to zone out from the world, or maybe they don't even know that tool works for them and they go in there and they're like, wow, right, I found something that I can relate to, right? So these are all great tools, you guys, right? So we're creating that bucket. We're thinking about what we're going to put in that area.
So we also have, someone mentioned dimming the lights or blue covers for lights.
Yeah, dimming the lights, totally, right? So even if, I know certain classrooms even that have lit lamps, right, in that area, or they have a covering, right? Maybe they have a desk, not these old-fashioned type desks, or a small table that they could cover with a blanket so it is a darker space. That's maybe where the flashlight would come in handy, right?
I don't know where you want to put your eye mask. We could have it hanging on the wall so it's easy access. Someone pointed out that bringing the outdoors in the classroom, like plants or non-poisonous plants. So that's a great idea. So bringing that plant, maybe a slightly bigger plant would be helpful. Someone offered pictures she can bring out that will calm her, and a white noise machine might be helpful too. So maybe in that headphones, we could have white noise going.
Right.
And then visual pictures that are calming. So working with that child individually to explore what helps them calm down.
These are great. Here, I'll trade places with you, Rach.
Okay.
Let's see. Pictures. Yeah. Oh, even personal pictures.
Yeah. So if the student can access, like if we get
like a book, like depending on their age level, like we talked about, common carry areas could be for any age, but they're pictures, right?
Pictures from home. Parents can send in a notebook of pictures,
right? Or even making a class book of just family pictures where they can look at and feel comfortable. You know, social stories are great. A small water feature. Now, I wouldn't have them as a teacher. I've never really had one, but maybe you can find one at a garage sale.
I do. I'm a big believer in water. I have a daughter who is benefits from just even putting her hands under the water when she's feeling that overwhelm.
Yeah. Dimming the lights, bring the outdoors, eye covering masks. You guys are awesome. Like, you're really thinking like so many things we can do for these two students, and making sure that all of them, right? So anything else? We have about less than a minute
left. If there's any other ideas people have that they'd like to add,
just go ahead and throw it in. I think we have a really good start to our prototype, right? We're really focused on that. Oh, time is up. All right. All right.
All right, so this is a time for us to reflect. Reflection is very important in any process, any challenge that we do, because it helps us think about what we just did, kind of learn from the experience, kind of analyze it a little bit. So is this prototype functional? Do you think that this was a functional, purposeful? Did we meet the goals that we were trying to achieve? What do you think works really well? We'd like as much input from the chat room as possible. If there's anything that you really liked about the space we made, the thing that we created together, all of us working together. Do you think that this prototype was used to explore several design alternatives? So do you think we met all of those goals? And then more importantly, what improvements could be made? So again, it helps us to really think about what we just did. And that's where the create meaning around it. So this is where the learning for us to learn really begins, and help us as we move forward and try to create this again. What would we learn from it? So do we have anybody that has any ideas or any thoughts they want to offer into the chat about as we reflect on the process we just did?
I just love, personally, I just love how everyone really threw out ideas, and they really were thinking about other people's ideas and how you could take those people's ideas and make them into different ideas, right? And everything is about trial and error, right?
Yes.
So,
like, I didn't think of an eye mask, but I think that's a great, and we were working on this for quite some time, thinking of ideas to put available for us. And so it just shows that if we work together and we seek out other people's advice and experience, we can find ways to work to create a really, really good space that will meet the needs of so many students.
Yeah. And, just participating in creating, and normally we would have more time, right? To be, to try this out and to have a conversation of what works, what wouldn't work, what would it look like? For example, I'm talking to myself, I guess. There's one here on this screen that a group of third grade teachers created, right? So, they thought of very similar things, but they came up with the book, the timer, the pencils, beanbag. Here's what I was talking about the table where you could have a blanket on the top, right? When we work together, we're really talking about all the different things, all the different ideas that everyone has, right? So, we're glad that you were able to participate with us in this. And I love that Charlie was saying that we could ask our students for their input. Yes. I love that.
They're the ones that are going to use it. They're the ones that would have some great ideas on what helps them find their calm.
Yeah, and that's one of the, in the toolkit that we created, that is one of the first things we do is get to know our students, right? And also get their input of what they think would be great in a calming cave as well, right? We call it a cave because of our book, Addie's Me Cave, but you can call it anything, calming corner. I've heard people even call it Hawaii. You want to go to Hawaii for a little bit? Okay, go to Hawaii, right?
Nice.
I know.
That's my new spot.
Exactly. All right.
All right, so we want to thank everyone so much for coming today. We'd like to point out in the last few minutes that this is our Me Cave Toolkit, and it is coming out and will soon be available. And all of these great things that are laminated behind us do come with it. And they can be laminated and used as posters in your location that you choose. But the best part about this is that it actually gives you a step-by-step guide as to how you implement this in your classroom. So on Monday, this is what we're doing, and we're going to learn about our students. And on Tuesday, we're going to read the story about Addie, and then we're going to think about what helps us feel better. What might help us in our cave? And then the students work together to think about what helps them, and the teacher starts to see the similarities and what they would need to fill in their cave. Then here the students kind of try out some of the tools on Wednesday. There's a letter that goes home to the parents so that parents are just as involved as the students are, and they can start offering ideas to the teachers as well, and maybe do this at their own house. Thursday is a time to set up the rules and boundaries around the cave, so that it's not just a exploratory, or it's not just a fun spot. It actually has those boundaries we had talked about. And then here it's a little bit more in depth of how to create a social story and how to help students. Like we had mentioned, Stephen needed a breakdown of what I do when I come here, or what I do to calm down. And social stories are such a great way for that. So this is a whole lesson plan outline for teachers, so that Monday through Friday, they know what they're doing, and in 1 week you can implement this. And then the back is where all of these great things that I showed you before are available for you to be laminated and used in your classroom.
Yeah, and there's so many, we put so many things in there, just being a teacher myself for so many years, and definitely preschool all the way to, I would say I would even use it in 5th grade in some aspects. But there's a lot of great things, like she said, there's social stories and other things that we didn't even have a chance to mention to you today. So if you're looking for a way to get started on creating a space in your classroom, yeah, it is definitely a useful thing. So we have a bit.ly link for you if you want to get on the list when it does come out. You can access it at bit.ly/mecave, right? Capital Me, capital Cave. There's also an order form for other things as well on there, the books, and also joining a mailing list. It's all on there. But we want to thank you today so much for being here, being a part of this presentation, and I hope you have a newfound experience that you can bring back to your classroom. Not only was this interactive for all of us, right? We learned so much from each other. This is another way that you can get kids working together, sharing their ideas, collaborating on something that is important to them. They could do something like this for Me Cave in your classroom as well, right? So, and you can also follow us on social media if you would like to. So all that is there for you.
Thank you so much, everyone. We were so excited to be here today.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.